Oh.
It's me. Judge asked, who picked this music? Of course.
I'm impressed.
It's Texas guy. More warning signs. Democrats are headed for some colossal losses this November. Van Jones is just the latest liberal to sound the alarm.
When you overpromise so much in the beginning of the year and you're underdelivering at the end of the year, and don't forget Build Back Better, et cetera, you suddenly wind up with a disappointment factor plus inflation. You got to signal to people that the people that brought you to the dance, young people and black folks, are going to get something out of the government, or people are not going to want to vote.
So, what's the White House's solution to prevent this disaster? Well, more cowbell. More of the deeply unpopular 79-year-old commander-in-chief, more Joe Biden. An advisor tells Fox News Biden will ramp up campaign appearances for Democrats while pushing his agenda. Greg, I don't want to be petty. I think these examples I'm about to give you are relevant. Incapable of saying the word kleptocracy. Ushered by the Easter Bunny. Told when to wave or sit by Jill Biden. Can it really be that the public needs more Joe Biden?
You don't understand, man. The kids, Gen Z, they love Joe. They love Joe. He is so edgy. It's hip and edgy to be mindless right now. They love him. They love him. They love him. CNN, I got to hand it to him, and Van Jones has always been a straight shooter, saying that the daily lives of black Americans have gotten worse under Joe. So compared to who? Trump, which means they were better off under Trump, which is what Trump was saying. Do you remember that? When he used to say, what do you got to lose? What do you got to lose? People forgot. He was lampooned for that. He was basically saying that the Democratic Party relies on blacks to win, and then they give them the shaft, and all that blacks really want is what everybody else wants, which is like a good economy, great jobs. It's the problem with the Democratic Party. They have, and why blacks, I think, should be pissed. They assume that skin color equates wokeism. Because you're part of an identity group, then you should also buy into everything that the white leftist is into, the white progressive, that you should be into defunding the cops, right? Or that maybe, rioting is just a form of more aerobic protests. It's like all the progressive stuff that is spewed from the Antifa whites is supposed to be embraced by blacks. No. They live the same day-to-day reality as millions of other people. That means they're upset by inflation. They are really upset by crime because oftentimes they live in areas where they become victims of crime. And they do care about the border because that affects jobs. So I think what happened is they just assume that blacks think differently about stuff. That's racist.
Well, Harold, to that point, the numbers Greg is referring to, first of all, 41% approval rating overall. But if you dig into it with minorities, black voters, and also with young voters, it's even worse. It's getting really bad as you slice and dice the electorate.
I agree with everything Greg said.
Thank you.
And I think that Democrats, Republicans alike, everyone in politics should understand more and more that every voting bloc, there's some common denominators. People want safe neighborhoods. People want the best prices, lowest prices for things that they need, their indispensable goods. People want a border that is protected. And I got to tell you, the issue of education, which for a long time when I was in politics was an economic issue, has become a cultural issue in many ways because of some of the fights and battles that are happening in classrooms. And I think that Democrats should be very careful to not stereotype and generalize and believe that every black parent is going to agree with some of the things that have been assigned to those who appear to be woke in our country. Black parents want their kids to learn. There's certain things we can debate. If we have things in the classroom that unsettle students, we shouldn't make students feel bad about themselves, but we should tell the truth about our history and those things. But Democrats, listen closely to what Greg said and listen closely to what Van Jones, and more importantly, listen to those numbers. African Americans approve of President Biden 67%, down from 20 points.
Right.
Now, we're slightly different with Greg on the Donald Trump thing, but one thing is for certain, those words resonate. And what Donald Trump was saying, there's an element of truth that some Democrats believed. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but there were a number of African Americans who did. These numbers are alarming as we head into a season where the Democrats are on the ballot in the House and the Senate.
So, but Katie, I'm looking at this economy, immigration, foreign policy, inflation, crime, gasoline. What do you have to brag about?
At the end of your list.
disinformation?
I know. That's the thing. I mean, Republicans are loving this. The NRSC, the NRCC, the RNC, they're happy with Joe Biden going out and talking about the contrast between Republicans and the Biden administration, because Joe Biden's just going to talk about how they're terrible, and he may say you're not black if you don't believe in his policies. And Republicans have plans to offer in swing states, especially when it comes to these issues that you just listed off. And we've gone from Republicans looking like they're going to take the House to looking like they're going to take the House and the Senate. You said a year ago that the Senate would have been a really tough draw. Well, it's looking more and more that Republicans are going to take it based on being focused on those issues, while the White House continues to be in this woke bubble where they're sending the president out to talk about things that people, quite frankly, aren't really interested in when it comes to theory and all that kind of stuff. They want to talk about issues that affect their daily lives.
But even beyond the issues, Judge, I don't know how they convince themselves that Biden is the messenger that every Democrat needs.
You know, Biden is underwater in 40 states right now. The question that I have is, who's going to ask Biden to join them to go out in the public? I mean, the guy who can't read a teleprompter straight, who says, I'm not worried about a recession and ... I'm worried about a recession. I mean, you know, the guy doesn't have a message that makes any sense. And, you know, so sending him out is not the smartest thing to do. But I also think that in line with one of the things that Harold was saying is you've got these political operatives on the left, and they are trying to convince people that it's a smart thing to to impinge upon free speech, because they're saying that especially this woman, Nina Jankovic, or whatever her name is, that First Amendment marginalizes people of color. Okay, so they're trying to convince them that if you're a person of color, we're going to take care of you, we're going to help you. And they're just trying to move those numbers up. But the bottom line is everybody wants the same thing, to be able to feed their family, to be safe and secure, and not have to worry about issues that, you know, they didn't have to worry about 2.5 years ago.
You're absolutely right. I think the quote was, free speech absolutists are a threat to marginalized communities.
Yeah, crazy.
Everything's racist, of course, including border security. That idea is an unhinged liberal talking point we share with you next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.